Hey everybody, welcome back to Art a la Carte and part 2 of my Drawing a Dragon Eye video series. So if you missed part 1 where I sketched in the dragon eye, I'll leave a link for that. You can jump back and watch that video. But if you're ready to ink in your dragon eye or just looking for a video talking about tips and tricks for inking in things, this is the video for you. So without further ado, let's get into it. The next thing you want to do is pick out something to ink your drawing with. You could use just a regular pen or specialized liner pens. So I have so many. I kind of have an obsession with them. So I have a lot. A really popular brand is a Copic multi-liner. Also, microns are super good. Brush tips. This is kind of a brush tip, meaning that if I push harder on this, I'm going to get a thick to thin line depending on my pressure. And then there's fine tips, which this one is super fine. I'll talk about that in a second, if you can even see it. All right, do you see that tiny little nub right there? That's the ink pen. And so I get a super fine line with that. And depending on this number here, will tell you how fine this is. So this is 005, which I think is the finest one that I have. It's the tiniest one. But you can get ones that are, this is a 0.5. So you can see that one's a much thicker line. So you just depends on how thick you want your line. There's also different colored inks, lots and lots to choose from. There's really nice brush pens that kind of act like almost like a paintbrush. There is no right or wrong pen to use. I see artists use all different kinds. So play around with what you've got and find what works best for you, and go ahead and grab that. One thing to think about is the coloring process. What are you going to use to color this with? So you could use colored pencils or markers, crayons, paints. If you use anything that has water to it, you might want to test out your brush. Some of these ink pens are water soluble. So if you take, a watercolor marker or Crayola marker or watercolor paint and you put on top of that, then your ink pen is just going to go blah, 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 and that's just going to be very sad. So if you have a little scratch piece of paper, you can do a little test swatch and then test your little color on top of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and ink this in, and I'm just going to start at a point where I can start the line and finish the line. I want to try not to start in the middle of something. I want to start at a curve or a bend or an intersection. And that's going to give me a much smoother line. So this point here, I have a good starting point here. I also have a good starting point here. I have a starting point here. I wouldn't stop it here because this line actually overlaps and goes all the way down. I'm going to start up here at the top. I'm going to go down and then I'm going to lift my pen and move my hand. I'm trying to anchor myself. If you have kind of shaky hands, if you can anchor your hand somewhere on the paper, that can kind of help. And it's all about going nice and slow and not rushing anything. Now, if you're using an ink pen that has some pressure sensitivity like this one, play around with your line weight. And that's how thick your line is. So the harder I push on my paper, the thicker my line is going to be. And I might want to do that places that I have a little bit more of a shadow. So under here, I'm going to push my pen just a little bit. You see I got that nice thick line right there. And then up here, I'm going to have more of a highlight, so I'm going to have a nice thin line. So I can add that over here. You can even go over top of other lines and kind of thicken them up a little bit. And it just gives a little bit of weight to your picture. It just helps to give that illusion of there's a little bit of a shadow, even in your line art. Now this can be a really scary part of the process. I remember being so scared, and oftentimes, even though I was super careful, I would ruin my line arts because the pencil sketch looked great, and then I'd go add in the inking and it would just ruin it. And that happens because you are learning how to do this, and it's just, you're going to lose some drawings. It's just the way it goes. So what I did is, those sketches that you do that don't turn out and you just want to throw them away, don't throw them away. Use those sketches, even though they're bad sketches, and practice your line art on it. because it doesn't matter if you mess those up. That's a good way to practice those. Nice fluid motions. Now, if you're doing something that a line that starts maybe from the top of the page and goes all the way down and there's no really strong breaking point, again, this is going to take a lot of practice, but draw with your whole arm. Don't just try to go rink, 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 because you're going to get little broken areas. Draw, put it, and just pull your arm across. But if you're just starting, work on something tiny like this. Don't try to do a huge piece for line art. And I'm going to go ahead and just finish up the rest of this. And I'm going to go a little bit fast. I'm going to time lapse this so this video isn't super long. So feel free to pause this video or stop it and work on the line art for yours. Or if you just want to kind of join me for the adventure and not really draw along, then you can just keep on watching the video. Or if you're super fast at drawing, you can just draw really fast along with me. Now, one trick that I didn't do that I highly recommend my art students do is that you don't have to keep your paper stationary. If you're drawing and it's more comfortable, flip your paper around. I try not to. You saw I did a little bit in the time lapse, but I try to always keep my paper really steady just because it's easier for you guys to see what the heck I'm doing if I'm not moving my paper around as much. But it really can be super helpful if you need that angle, because for me, I'm left-handed, and so a really natural line is this. So if I have to do a line that's like this, it's not natural for me. So turning my paper so that I can do that line in the way that works best for my hand can really help. Okay, so I finished in my inked in drawing. I'm going to make sure that this is nice and dry. Some inks take a lot longer to dry than others, and you want to make sure your ink is fully dry before you try to erase any pencil marks, because if it's not completely dry and you go ahead and start erasing, you're going to smudge your ink, and that's going to be really sad too. So I'm going to use this yellow gummy eraser. This one's really sticky. I actually haven't used it a lot yet, but I'm going to go ahead and just rub this along, and you'll see that it picks up most of the red pencil. There's just a couple places I pushed a little bit harder than I should have, and it might not pick that one up. If you're using a regular graphite pencil, your eraser should pick all of that up. All right, I have my finished sketch. It's inked in, and now it is time to add in some color. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and stop this video and pick it up in part 3, where we're going to talk about adding color. I'll give some tips and ideas for different color mediums, but I will be doing mine in watercolor. So if you have not yet, hit that subscribe button. Make sure to do that so you don't miss out on that video or any future video. So until next time, God bless you guys. Keep drawing, being creative, and we'll see you in the next art video. Bye-bye.